What is up, guys? Alexander here with datepsychology.com. Today, we're going to do a roast of me, of my goatee, based mostly on YouTube, well, entirely on YouTube comments. So, let's see what all of the people are saying. Here we have one from Tony. He says, I love this guy's voice accentuation. I feel he can say one does not simply very well. Oh, yes. So good. Got some pictures up for reference. I don't know who all of these people are, but many of them, sure. So Peter Baelish in the house. So cool. You got Littlefinger on your podcast. Solid information from Littlefinger. Yeah. Littlefinger really loves to stretch out. Christmas. Oh, yeah. So Christmas tree. Yeah. Here we have, Bond, James Bond villain. So that whole Bond villain come wizard thing he's got is going on, working really well for him. This one says, taking advice from Dr. Evil. Dr. Evil was very good with women. Why would you not take advice from Dr. Evil? Dude's got a master's in Bond villain. Is his office inside a volcano? I wish it were. Here we have one that says, it's good to finally come across a social scientist that has molded himself on the fast show's Professor Denzel Dexter. I didn't know who that was, but there you can see resemblance, a little bit. Wow, Rasputin is still alive. Maybe a little bit, yeah, a little bit of Rasputin. Also, again, Rasputin. What was he known for, right? Being a seduction expert, ironically enough. Well, I am not, but Rasputin certainly was. What else do we have here? Yeah. Fascinating guest who took time out from winning a Johnny Depp look-alike contest to dropping some interesting knowledge on us. This guy would look really cool with a black eye patch. He should wear an eye patch, yeah. Pirate, okay, good. Pirate, so interesting. Something that was found in a study on erotic novels, right? Erotica, literature written by women, was there was a series of themes in the most popular ones with what was the man like in erotica, right? And this is interesting. This is something I'm going to look into in some future research as well, because erotica is written by women for women. So this is the kind of pornography, so to speak, that women consume. Well, so they have males, and what are the males? So one is criminal, vampire, werewolf. One is pirate. So if you look like a pirate, you were probably doing okay. This one is funny. So it says, watching this dude, I can't help but think he's trying to make a deal with me. Anyone else get the same feeling? This guy says, he's a great fiddle player, which makes me trust him and his contracts implicitly. So a devil reference. The devil went down to Georgia. Yeah, that one probably has more resemblance. That is the facial style, right? The Van Dyke, the devil. What does this one say? The guest in this episode is basically what you'd get if you typed ephemeral rift, but he's a reputable psychologist in the manosphere, into an AI origin. I didn't know who that was. I think it's another YouTuber. There's the photo. Yeah, a little bit of a resemblance there as well. That is a pimp goatee styling. Oh yeah, so pimps, famous for their flamboyant facial hair. Indeed. This guy says, that guy looks like a Viking that retired after decades of conquest. Now he does research on dating apps to calm his mind. I'll tell you guys, researching dating and attractiveness was more difficult than all of that bloody warfare as a Viking. It is rough out there in the dating world. You might prefer to go to war. What does this one say? He looks like he's walked out of a film from 1963 into 2023. Bright guy. So, film noir reference, I think. I tried to find who in film noir had a goatee, who had a Van Dyke. Maybe there's someone, it didn't come up, but I get the reference. I understand the vibe there. Accurate. This guy says, I trust him because of his glasses and his musketeer beard. Yeah, exactly. Van Dyke beard is typical of the musketeers, certainly. And again, not bad to be a musketeer. This guy says, anyone reminded of that episode of the IT Crowd where the guy Jin is dating, looks like a magician? Yes, yeah, a lot of resemblance there, at least in the video where I took these comments from. He looks like Colonel Sanders' great-grandson watched all of Kevin Samuel's catalog and said, yeah, that's a bit of me. Yeah, Yeah, Colonel Sanders, PUA. This guy says, this guy really should consider putting a black cover on one of his spectacle lenses to really complete the Hank Serpico villain look that he's going for. Yeah, it's a good idea. I should do that. I should probably keep both of my eyes though. Seems like a legit dude, but also looks like a high schooler playing a psychologist in a school play. Yeah, I do have a baby face, especially if I shave. It just takes like 15 years off. Incredible. Does he want to be Alan Watts? Maybe. Alan Watts is pretty cool. There is some resemblance here, especially with the gray in the beard, isn't there? Here's a guy that says, when you're listening to this guy who apparently expects you to take him seriously, remember that he deliberately cultivates his beard that way. In fact, if you want to be a good scientist, you have to have a weird beard. This is the rule. I did not make it. This has been a tradition for 100 years, 1,000 years, right? All the way back to Aristotle. As you can see here, all of the great scientists have weird facial hair. If you don't, are you even a good scientist? The question is up in the air. Lots of comments, so many, hundreds and hundreds of comments on my physical appearance and my goatee. Great. Give that man the Goatee of the Year award. This interviewee has the coolest beard I've ever seen on YouTube. The speaker with the beard is definitely my kind of attractive. This guy says, this guy has mastered looks maxing. This guy says, why does this man remind me of Brad Pitt in some odd way? I can't get past it. Anyone else? Another great Modern Wisdom podcast. Yeah, I took all of these from the show with Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom. Make sure to see that. We talk about a lot of really cool topics. Great interviewer. And you know, he interviews some of the most famous psychologists in the world. Definitely follow that channel. Follow my channel. It says, facial hair, super on point. And this guy says, as a woman, I find weird beards creepy. When did shaving become such a taboo? I believe the actual answer, serious answer to that question would be that beards went out of style, I believe, in the 30s, 40s, going into the 50s and the 60s. Apart from his facial hair choices, he is actually objectively handsome. His face is almost totally symmetrical. Thank you, I've been going to gym for my face. This guy says, I'll grow a strange beard and say the word cohort 500 times. That's accurate, I do that, yeah. I love the word cohort, it's my favorite word. Dude has a doctorate in weird beards. It's true, that was my first PhD, weird beards. What came first, the PhD or the beard? I actually do not have a PhD yet, but, oh, this guy says, goatee and a man bun when you thought it could not get any worse. Yeah, I imagine, I see that often, people say that on Twitter to me when they get mad. They say, he has a man bun. It's funny because you know a lot of these guys, well, not even going to go into the appearance of other individuals. So this is a serious goatee, my dude, respect. This guy says, this guy has either fake gray or really nice skin. It is really nice skin. I look much younger than I actually am. I think some of you guys would be surprised at my age, as a matter of fact. But no, it's not fake gray, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately, it looks nice, the gray. I like it. This guy says, irony is getting advice about not being creepy from a man with that beard. Yeah, I mean, if it looks like the devil, I don't really blame you for being creeped out in that sense. What is the research on goatees and attractiveness? So, I've covered that a little bit in the past on facial hair and attractiveness. I don't know of any research that has looked at weird facial hair and attractiveness, right? Or unconventional facial hair and attractiveness. A Van Dyke, for example, this kind of facial hair. Typically, light stubble, on average, is rated a little bit more attractive. A clean-shaven face comes in second. Beards sometimes are rated more attractive than a clean-shaven face. If you grow a goatee and braid it, who knows? Who really knows? This guy says, is anyone taking attractiveness from a man with that beard? Yes. As a matter of fact, I like this guy, but please shave the weird facial hair. No. He talks sense, but really, what's up with his ridiculous beard and mustache? Too weird to date. Ooh, that's harsh, brutal, getting roasted. Someone should help him with appearance. That beard is not trimmed well. That's probably true. Bro looks like a leftist, but speaks like a conservative. Oh, interesting comment there. What does this say? I wouldn't take anyone with that kind of beard seriously. Again, remember, You have to. It is a sign of seriousness to have a strange beard. All of the world's best scientists, weird facial hair, weird hair on their head. Why though? Why do you think that? Because this is actually kind of a real thing that you see. Academics are very eccentric, right? There's probably something that goes along with that, with high intelligence and being kind of eccentric or weird. I'm not saying that I'm especially super high intelligence like Albert Einstein, but I'm just saying people that are curious, right? Openness to experience, one of the big 5 personality traits that is kind of related to wanting to explore things, to discover things, right? Does that make them more willing to experiment with their appearance or their facial hair or whatever? Maybe it does. This guy wrote a novel about my life and there was so many comments. I just picked the ones I thought were funny. So many mean comments, positive comments, many comments comparing me to famous people. And comments, very long comments like this. People will invent a life history for you if they don't like you. Or maybe even if they do, or whatever. People love to do that, Physiognomy, right? They see in the face and they say, what does the physiognomy of this person indicate? What can we tell from his beard? What does his beard reveal about the life of Alexander? So, what did he say? How accurate is this? To be more specific, he's a huge nerd, LOL. He has the speech and mannerisms of someone who is not completely neurotypical. That might be true. I think I am completely neurotypical, but I may actually have a strange way of speaking from speaking multiple different languages. I'm sure he was a huge nerd in high school and probably got wedgies or put in a locker, maybe not literally. Even now, he's much more professor than Chad. A middle-aged Chad is like a handsome investment banker or something. And much more normie than this guy, who is most definitely not a normie. Now, I'm not saying this guy is ugly by any means, but he's nothing spectacular. His looks are within the average range, but he has embraced a certain style and is a perfect example of what they were talking about in terms of leaning into yourself and becoming more of what you are. He's got the hair, the glasses, the goatee, and the turtleneck with the jacket. He has the whole thing going on. While I might somewhat question some of it, I get it. Also, he has confidence in himself and his subject matter. He's not afraid to present himself as an expert. So you could say that he's a hot nerd, but only because he has made himself that way, not as an act, but as an authentic expression of himself. This is a pretty well thought out comment. It's not entirely true. I wasn't exactly a huge nerd. In fact, I did very poorly in school and I was kind of a delinquent, as a matter of fact. And I think if you see me in a jacket and turtleneck, you might get a very different impression than if you saw me in different attire, right? So those are pictures. Do they go along with the nerd image? Maybe. Hot nerd. I like it. Hot nerd is good. Good to be. That's a good place to be if you can. Here we have another comment that says, one of the things that guys get wrong about what women find attractive is the long goatee beard. So I don't think many men are making that mistake because I don't see many men with the beard. I might be making that mistake. It could be the fact. I might be a big old dummy. But remember, this was on a video about what men get wrong about what women find attractive. Again, on Chris Williamson's channel, put up today. Go and check that out. What is something that men and women get wrong? Men perceive sexually dimorphic traits in other men as being more attractive than women do. So women want men that, at least facially, as far as their facial appearances go, are less masculine. For me personally, if I were to shave, then that would actually put me more in that direction, right? I would have a very baby face in that case. But, you can see in the chart here from the survey that I ran, right? Men think Giga Chad is very, very attractive. And it's funny because there are many comments that say, no one thinks he's attractive. That's not the point of the meme. Well, no, you can see. Men do. They rate him as attractive. Men think that Giga Chad is attractive. I don't think he's an unattractive man myself. Women, much less. So when other men talk about your physical appearance, there's always something that you have to ask yourself. And that is, how well do other men know what women really like? And that can bring us on to the next question, which many of you, and certainly many of the comments, straight out, there's so many comments about the goatee. So we're doing a video roasting the goatee. So many comments, many negative comments, many positive comments, probably more negative comments, because again, it's an effect that if you say something people don't like, then they will attack your physical appearance. That's well observed. I think most people have probably experienced that online if they've ever put a picture online and said something that somebody does not like. So, do women like my goatee? This all kind of raises that question, as many people said, women don't like it. Some people said I like it. Some people said I don't. Well, the real answer to that is probably less than being clean shaven in my personal case. Now, why do I say that? So these are the ratings that I got on Photo Feeler on the pictures that I used when I was clean shaven. So Photo Feeler lets you upload pictures. You can get a pretty large sample of unique women that will rate your photos across different metrics, right? You have intelligence, trustworthiness, and attractiveness. And these predict pretty well how well you will do on, for example, a dating app, right? So you should use apps kind of like this, to kind of test the photos that you put up on dating apps. It's something that you can do, people that try to optimize their dating apps, right? So each of these ratings is rated between, about 30 to 50 unique women. Across all of these ratings, what was the average rating for these are all of the pictures I ever uploaded on Photo Feeler. What was the average rating across all of these by women? It was a 9.25, so pretty high with a clean shaven face, and certainly, these were when I was on Tinder a few years back, so they're not the most recent pictures. They're not old pictures either, and they don't really look that different if I were to shave. But, certainly my experiences on Tinder for the brief period of time that I was on it kind of match the ratings, I didn't have trouble matching. So what else can we look at? So I tested 4 photos with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence now has been trained on human raters and faces, and you can upload a picture to some of these AI programs and they'll give you a rating. So clean shaven, using the top photo rated by women by this AI, it gave me a 7.1. Then I uploaded another one that was kind of an intermediate phase photo that was about 2 years old. And this was with a Van Dyke, but no goatee, so like a half Van Dyke, right? So boom, imagine my face just with this and this, without the goatee. And that was an 8.4. Then the goatee half length. So imagine this, but cut about in half. And that was a 7.8. And then today's picture, just right before I made this video, was a 6.9. So in fact, the lowest rating given to me by the AI was now with the goatee looking exactly as I look. So is it looks maxed, my goatee? Probably not. It probably isn't. But then again, certainly that wasn't my intention growing it. If it were, like I said, I would probably shave. How well does AI work? That's a question we can ask looking at these. Well, pretty well. I've made videos on this in the past. I think I've gone over this. But correlations with artificial intelligence that rates faces now and human raters, it's pretty high, like 0.8 or 0.9. Why? Well, because they're trained on human raters, right? So you get a bunch of human raters, you have them rate faces, you upload those faces, the AI picks out all of these different features and distances and everything, and it correlates those. So, maybe even using in research on attractiveness, on facial attractiveness, maybe even using human raters, because if you want to have attractive faces, right, for a research paper, for your methodology, you got to say, okay, how do I determine if the face is attractive or unattractive? So first you get a sample to rate the faces. And then you say, okay, so these are the faces that most people rated attractive or higher. These are the faces that most people rated lower. And then you have your group of attractive faces, right, with their pre-ratings. And then you take those faces and you can use them in your actual experiment, right, where you're trying to see what attractiveness is associated with. So maybe in the future, that initial phase where you have to get human raters to rate your faces ahead of time will just be phased out completely. Maybe in the future you can just upload them to the AI and get facial ratings that are as good. But we don't know, whatever. AI may have a bias toward beards, right? Because part of what AI is trained on is facial symmetry. And when you grow a beard, it makes your face less proportionate to the AI and less symmetrical. So I've played around with a lot of these AI programs, and I find that most of them do actually rate, if I upload clean-shaven faces, pretty similar to the way that women rate clean-shaven faces of mine. But if I upload faces with my goatee, if I take it apart or whatever, that can just do a lot of things to the ratings. So they don't seem to deal with facial hair very well. And of course that could be because, you know, they're trained less on faces with facial hair, or because it's part of the algorithm that has to do with symmetry, or it could even be because facial hair is rated lower by the human beings that they train the AI with. So these are all different reasons that could be. Something else to consider, and certainly this is something, you know, you can kind of see as an anecdote across all of the comments, is there's high variation in rater agreement. In the past, we would use Cronbach's alpha to determine if there was inter-rater agreement. This is something that you use on surveys as well to see if items correlate with one another, right? And you can use this to see if there's agreement on facial attractiveness. And in the past, this is certainly something that has been used to draw the conclusion across literature that facial attractiveness is largely agreed upon, right? Because we see high rater correlation using Cronbach's alpha for faces. You know, people tend to agree on what an attractive face is. But more recent research has called that into question a little bit. It said, you know, there's still agreement on attractive faces, but it might not be as high, using different statistical methodologies, saying, you know, Cronbach's alpha might not be the best to use for this. But then also, for example, research from Honeycup here. This shows agreement between pairs of raters. And you can see the effect where it kind of goes down, right? From the most attractive to the lower ranked faces. But most faces, regardless of where they fall in this distribution, have pairs that rate them. You know, someone says it's good, someone says it's bad. So most faces aren't found attractive by most people, but most faces also are not found unattractive by most people. So that's something to keep in mind, kind of a white pill, you know, that there's probably someone out there that will find you attractive. Also on that next slide, from a large survey that I ran, even faces rated low in attractiveness will have a large pool of women that says they're willing to date that person. So I selected faces that had been pre-rated low in attractiveness. The women themselves that participated rated these faces low in attractiveness as well. Average attractiveness on a scale of 1 to 7 was about a 2.5, 2.3 in this case, well, about a 3, so a little bit lower than below average. And yet most of these faces, when rated by women, or when women indicated, is this person attractive enough for you to date, had over 25% of women that said, yeah, they're attractive enough for me to date. So that's something else to consider with facial attractiveness. We use scales. I've talked about this in videos in the past, where people fall on the scale 1 to 7 or 1 to 10, but actual mate choice might look more binary. In the manosphere, certainly this is discussed as the looks test, right? You pass the looks test, and then additional personality traits and that sort of thing may come into play. The bar for the looks test might be a lot lower than people tend to think that it is. Here is a slide, so something to consider. If you adopt a different look, you know, there are unconventional male styles across cultures around the world. The first picture here is the Sapiens or the Sapios from France. And, well, no, they're from the Congo, from the Democratic, they speak French, but from the Congo. You know, you can see the background. You think, wow, they look really out of place there. These are men that really love to dress up and all of that. They're extremely popular, you know, they like that. Middle, you know, K-pop, very different style. But again, many women find that attractive. Many women probably also do not. And then in the third picture, you have a Italian style called sprezzatura, which I believe has to do with just kind of like a casual style look. That's probably closer to what a lot of you guys would think is kind of cool and stylish, but it can also be very, very flamboyant, right? It can stand out. It can make people within Italian culture, and there's similar things across the Mediterranean, that if people dress like that, maybe they're low class. So there's not universal agreement that these very flamboyant male styles, and you can think of many polarizing styles, right, that represent specific subcultures, and of course men and women within those specific subcultures with those specific tastes are going to gravitate toward individuals like that, right? You know, emo, goth, you know, bikers with their unique style, kind of similar beards and that sort of a thing. So many different things, many different ways that men can express themselves in fashionable, stylish ways that will be attractive to some people, that some people will really, really like and think, wow, this is really, really cool. And then other people will see it and they'll say, that is absolutely ridiculous. That is stupid. They look really bad. So different opinions, one is not wrong or right. Something else to consider related to all of this is the halo effect, right? We often think of the halo effect as the effect that physical attractiveness has on perceptions of personality. Individuals who are more attractive are perceived as more intelligent. If they're men, if they're women, sometimes they're perceived as less intelligent, depending on the context. They're perceived as being more extroverted, being better people morally, and that sort of a thing. But the halo effect is bidirectional. The exact same effect works in reverse. You pair the same faces up with vignettes, right? A vignette, a description of the person. And one of them says, this is a good person, he does all of this. And the other says, this is a bad person, he does all these bad things. People will rate the face paired with the positive vignette more attractive. Why is it bidirectional? Well, we know from studies in neuroscience that the same areas in the brain that process perceptions of physical beauty also process perceptions of moral goodness. So, beauty and goodness in the brain, they're linked. They are linked. It is activating neurons in the same area. These are very closely linked things. What else do we know, right? People who like you, what is the practical implication of that? People who like you will think that you look better than you do, or they won't think you look worse than you do in that situation. People who don't like you, they won't. They won't have that effect. They'll probably see you as worse than you really are. So are we objective when we assess the appearance of other individuals? No, of course not. Particularly if it's someone that you have seen interact, and you think, I like that person. Oh yeah, he looks good, I like him. And then this guy is a dumb, blue-pilled feminist loser, which, it goes along with people saying, I don't like his beard. So, these things shape perceptions of attractiveness. And men and women as well, important, related to this, have what are called positive illusions about romantic partners. What does that mean? Almost everyone sees their own romantic partner as more physically attractive than when rated by outsiders, right? So there's many experiments like this. You can take pictures of couples, and then, you present the picture of the couple to the husband or the wife, and they rate it. And then you give the picture to a group of other raters, and they rate it lower, right? People think their own partners are more attractive than other people do. Why is that? Well, there's probably the effect of liking. You like that person, you're committed to that person. But there's probably also a selection effect, right? Because not everyone agrees perfectly, as we have seen, on what an attractive face is. And that means that people who think someone is more attractive are more likely to get into relationships with that person. So in a way, that person is really more attractive where it matters, right? To their partner. Kind of another white pill in a sense. What other lessons can we take away from all of this? Well, there's always people who will make fun of your appearance. It doesn't matter what you look like, right? In fact, you can see this. Movie stars, I made a video on Loki and Thor, Chris Hemsworth, I don't know the other actor. And you have people that say, I like Thor, I like Loki. Loki is not attractive at all to me. Thor is not attractive at all to me. And people will make fun of the appearances of people like Johnny Depp, of Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. And no matter how attractive they are, no matter what they look like. And if you make people mad, that's often one of the very first things that they will go for. Certainly, I don't see that a lot on YouTube in the comments. But on Twitter, when I post something that makes people angry, oh yeah, that's immediately, that is what people go for, is, oh yeah, man bun, look at this guy. Whatever the case may be, doesn't matter what you look like. People, love to do that. They'll pull your picture up and say, look at this guy. It could be someone who is very conventionally attractive, and people will do it. They do it to beautiful women on Twitter. They do it to men who are much more conventionally attractive than myself. Doesn't matter what you look like. If you make someone mad and you have your picture online, they will pull it up and they'll say, I don't like the way this person looks. He is very, very ugly. So something else to consider across all of this, a more broad observation, okay? Most men lack confidence, right? Most men do not have very much confidence. They're very concerned with their appearance and the way that they look to other people. And that also means that they might be very hesitant and very, very afraid to experiment with the way that they look, with putting a picture online or whatever, being very afraid that other people are going to say something mean about them, because, you know, people are sensitive to that. It hurts people's feelings when you say mean things about their appearance. Not me very much, but in general, you know. And this stops men from perhaps experimenting with styles and things that they like, right? Especially if it's kind of a unique or weird style like the ones that we see, you know, and especially if these are younger men, you know, a man in high school who dresses kind of differently, you know, a teenager, or a man early in college who dresses kind of differently or flamboyantly or whatever, you know, they might get bullied for that. They might get picked on, even though they were the ones that had the confidence to go out and say, you know, I like this style, I want to dress like this, whatever. And there's lots of archaic, you know, kind of styles that people think are really cool, but they would never wear because they think this would stand out, it would make people look at me, and people might make fun of me, it might be ridiculous, you know. Think about just men's styles from the 20s or whatever. The fedora was certainly something kind of like this that people, you know, liked because it looked really cool in old pictures. They started to experiment with it. It got associated with weirdos and that sort of a thing. But the point is, you know, a lot of men are really afraid to experiment with new styles, with dressing differently, with changing the way that they look. They're afraid of what other men will say about them and that women won't like them and all of that. As far as dating goes, and, you know, I don't give dating advice here. I cover research and papers. But as far as dating advice goes, you know, like, be confident. It might not be the thing that makes women like you if they don't, you know, if they're not attracted to you, whatever, they're not attractive to you. But if you aren't confident, you know, you can shoot yourself in the foot, right? Even if women might initially like your face. So certainly linked with all of that, this fear to experiment with the way that people look, with changing up their appearance and all of that. It's kind of a sign, I think, of low confidence, and kind of the opposite mindset that men who are struggling to date, that are, you know, don't have girlfriends, don't have committed relationships or whatever, haven't had much experience, should be too worried about. They should, you know, try not to worry too much about what other people think about your appearance. Looks max, you know, try to take care of your appearance, right? Try to make yourself look good as much as you can. But that doesn't mean that you should be self-conscious and afraid of the other way that people view you. You know, there are many men online in communities, you know, involuntarily celibate and all of that. I don't think it's implausible that these men may be less attractive, many of them, but I think some of them probably are, you know, as attractive as an average man, but they have extremely low confidence, so they don't try, they've given up, whatever. These are all personality traits, and you have an interaction with physical attractiveness, but having low confidence, being afraid, and all of that certainly is not something that's going to help you. So if you're a young man and you like different looks, right? You like different styles, you want to experiment with different things, I would tell you, you know, go for it. You know, it's not going to hurt you. You're not going to lose anything, you know. People will see it, and some people won't like it, and some people will. The important thing is that you like it, because if you feel good in your own skin, right? I'm giving you advice that might sound kind of normie here and blue-pilled, but how you feel about yourself does carry over into your behavior, and people can see your behavior, and that will affect their interactions with you, right? It's a real thing. It doesn't negate the fact that physical attractiveness or whatever is important, and that there's limitations as to what you could change, and that there's limitations as far as to what extent you can change your personality. But if you're walking around and you feel afraid in your own skin and all of that, well, you know, that will show through in your behavior. Sometimes, you know, people will pick that up if it's in work, business, right? Whatever the case may be, if it is dating and all of that. So I hope you guys had fun with this video. I had fun with all of the comments, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the very mean ones, the funny ones, and the nice ones. So I hope you had a good time. Like the channel, subscribe. I will make another video for you very soon.